Welcome to The Claw. I'm Eric Holtzclaw, Chief Strategist at Liger. The Claw is the marketing podcast for C-suite executives. I'm joined today by Brady Jensen. He is the CEO of Aggregate Insights. Brady, thanks so much for joining me on The Claw.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit about Aggregate Insights. What do you all do at Aggregate Insights?
Focus on primary intelligence insights, specifically to help people craft better go-to-market strategies.
Okay.
So less so on the market research side, more on the how do you take a product, build what the buying public wants to see from you, how do you sell to them in the way they want to be sold to, and ultimately how do you keep them as long-term customers. So really focused on having conversations with people who write the check, that buy the things you sell, who are in market, who you haven't sold to yet, to make sure that you have a really strong product market fit.
Okay. So tell me, give me an example. So tell me, like, what would be an example of something maybe that you've worked on, or a product that would be an interesting space for you guys?
Yeah, so we do a lot of work in technology. So a lot of our clients are in the software world, where they are either coming to market for the first time or maybe creating a new product that they don't have more than assumptions and hypotheses about what they should be building. In technology especially, there's 1,000 things you can build and 1,000 ways you can take a product, and it's not always clear exactly that you're building for the people that you want to sell to. So we partner with companies to help go out to market with the hypotheses and testable questions that we gather along the way from our client, and then help them piece together how close they are to what the reality on the ground actually is, by having in-depth primary research calls with those buyers to help them understand what is true, what is not true, what is a yes and or a no but about the way that they're thinking about going to market, so that ultimately they can make course corrections early before they've spent a ton of money and a bunch of resources, only to find out that they're too far away from where they to be as far as what the market wanted from them.
Okay. Well, it sounds like I owned a research company for a period of time and got into that space because I was in the product space, and we took a product into a research lab and realized that no one could use the product. So they couldn't sign in, they couldn't put a credit card in, and it was a beautiful failure. So I fell in love with it. I was like, it's so nice. If we'd known this earlier, we wouldn't have built all the wrong things. So talk to me about how did you get into this? Like, how did you decide that this was the thing that you wanted to do?
Yeah, well, I started out as a sales rep early in my career, and pretty successful at selling, but I felt like my calling was actually more on the marketing side. I watched prodders do their work. They sat right next to me back in the era of, people being in the office all the time, and would watch some of the things and thought it looked really exciting. So after many years of being a sales rep, and successfully so, I said, hey, I want to make a move to product marketing. And I think that's where I really learned a lot of what I ended up transitioning to when I built this company. Is, as a salesperson, I remember salespeople always discounting marketing and thinking, well, marketing isn't really, they don't know what they're talking about. They don't talk to our customer. We're in the market. Even the common refrain is like, marketing doesn't go to market. We go to market, right?
Yeah.
And I remember feeling a lot of sort of tension between marketing and sales. Marketing really wanted sales to go and represent them and the message that they've built and all this in a certain way, and then sales would largely disregard it and say, I know how to sell this stuff. I know what I'm doing. So I remember as I became a product marketer, I became very frustrated with the fact that while marketing wanted us to trust them, that there was a lot of the marketing work that was done that was creative writing. It didn't have backing. It didn't bring receipts, as the kids say, right? Like there was no way to actually prove that what you were trying to get a sales team to do was the right thing to do. So it became opinions against opinions. And I remember feeling that maybe sales was a little onto something, right? When they were concerned. I worked for a company with 300,000 employees selling business to business. And I remember, early on in my career, big sales kickoffs, the marketing executives would get up there and everyone would say, like, do they really understand how we do this? Like, this doesn't match the way that we actually go to market.
Yeah.
Well, after being a marketer, I got frustrated because I was like, this is why. There is no connection. Like we leave market research and all this stuff to the ivory tower, but as soon as it gets down to actually selling to customers, we tend to go off of a hunch and a belief, right? And I'm all for beliefs. I'm all for feeling like you have a vision of where you want to go as a company, but if it doesn't match reality on the ground, it's not going to get you very far. So after being a marketer for a while, going through these exercises where we were supposed to be building a position for the company or developing messaging or what have you, that it just missed the whole data point that I thought was the most important and only data point, which is really the customer.
Yeah.
And not really the customer that you already have, but the customer that you want, right? Customers that you have in many cases don't represent your next customer because they are earlier in their adoption cycle. They have more interest in blowing things up and changing the world. And then 3 years later, you're listening to an existing customer who says, keep telling the market this.
Yeah.
And your next customer says, I don't want to blow things up. I want to buy something in your category and I want to make sure that it is a safe bet for me.
Very nice. Well, we're going to go to our commercial break. When we get back, we'll talk a little bit about maybe some future. So we've got a bunch of technology coming on. Like, what is that going to do? How's that going to impact it? So we'll be back in just a second. You're listening to The Claw. I'm Eric Holtzclaw, Chief Strategist at Liger. I'm talking today with Brady Jensen. He is the CEO of Aggregate Insights.
The Claw podcast is brought to you by Liger. Liger is a hybrid marketing firm combining a brand strategy consultancy and a production house that offers the full range of content and creative services. We can be your entire marketing department or your entire marketing department's favorite people to work with. We save the world from boring, broken marketing by putting businesses in brand therapy so they can express their most authentic, memorable selves. And then we share their story so they can be known. For more information, visit ligerpartners.com and follow us on our social media platforms.
And we're back. You're listening to The Claw. I'm Eric Holtzclaw, Chief Strategist at Liger. I'm speaking today with Brady Jensen. He is the CEO of Aggregate Insights, and he does some stuff that I really like because it's about making sure that what you're building and how you're talking about it is what your customer actually wants. It's going to make it easier for them to buy from you ultimately. And I love the idea you talked about in the first segment of bringing some of those insights into the room. So like when you're the marketer pitching to the sales team, like this is why we're making this choice, like, hearing it directly from the customer, that's a great way to look at it. So as you start to put together, so you have a company that approaches you and they are starting to think about taking a product to market. What are you doing? What are some of the key strategies around that? Are you doing stakeholder interviews internally and seeing what they think and building something? Are there common questions that are going to be in there that you're, like what does that approach feel like?
After you've done enough of these, you start to see patterns of what is important, right? Yeah. The same way as you may have like product, price, placement, all those sorts of things. But every effort to bring a product to market is unique, and everyone in the room has a very unique perspective. So the first thing that we have to do with our clients is help them come to a unified belief internally about what they believe to be true. And what you find is that in most cases, that's not something that has naturally percolated, right? Even within the executive team, you start to ask pointed questions around those sorts of topics, and you get wildly different answers. And executives and their support staff start to look around and say, well, I thought we were all on the same page, right? Like,
right. Yeah.
how are we so far off? Now, I don't believe that it's always our job to fix those areas of disagreement, because we do have a buyer who can help us fix those areas of disagreement.
Yeah.
So I think that it's always about trying to find out. I'll give you an example for differentiation. Lots of companies want to differentiate. They know it's important to differentiate. The first thing they do is they say, all right, what are we good at? Okay, what are we the best at of the things we're good at? Okay, those are the things we're going to talk about in market, because we know we're not supposed to talk about everything, so we'll take 3 things that we think that we're the best at. We're going to talk about those. Well, there are plenty of companies out there that are the 3 things they believe that they are best at, or 3 things that the market and your buyer doesn't care about at all.
Right. Yep.
Happens all the time. When we're working with the client to help them understand, help them build strong differentiation, it's about helping go through a gating process to say, is it unique? Doesn't have to be something no one else is doing, but are you doing it in a unique way? Is it durable? Like, can you actually maintain this position of differentiation in the long term? Is it provable? Can you offer this differentiator and prove it in a way that your buyer will accept as true? Now, from one buyer to the next, depending on if you're selling highly technical things or not, that may have a different level of scrutiny. But then the last one is the value to the actual buyer. The actual buyer, that's the only person who can really answer that question. But internally, you have to already make some judgment calls about and get to a point where there may be some points of disagreement that you can bring to the buyer to have them help you sort out. But you should have some of the main basic keys to a go-to-market in place. Interesting thing is, you take it to buyers and they will oftentimes rearrange all the deck chairs for you, right? Which is great. There are some times when the research ultimately shows that the entire hypothesis needs to be tossed.
Yeah.
Not a great message to deliver to clients, but if they're smart, they realize that if they want to sell, they want to switch from selling to IT to selling to data scientists, and 20 of them tell me they will never buy this, it's not for them, not a chance. It's best to know that up front.
100%.
Going to market, finding that out.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, it's about helping them understand what do they know to be true, or at least believe that they know to be true. What do they think they know, but there might be points of dispute that we can help settle, and what are the things that are just complete unknowns that we need to probe the buyer about to help them understand. So it's very much a process of collaborating first internally, and then taking those in the form of testable questions to the market in an in-depth interview that isn't. It's not a live questionnaire. It's not, here's the 25 questions, we're going to answer them, or we're going to ask them all in order and just write them down, and then here you go, right? It's very much a freewheeling stream of consciousness conversation with the buyer, because they will take you to the areas that they care the most about. You don't want to constrain that by saying, well, here's your options A, B, C, or D.
Yeah.
You want to allow them to wander. And one of the better ways that we've found to actually make sure that they can wander a bit is using sort of an hourglass approach, where we ask pretty benign questions up front, get them warmed up, get them talking to you, become very narrow in the middle of the conversation where you're very probative around things that may be more closely held to the vest. Maybe they're a little uncomfortable for them, but you've warmed them up, they feel comfortable with you, and then you broaden out the conversation at the end so everyone walks away thinking, that was a great conversation, and we feel really good about it.
Yeah.
But the stuff in the middle, where there's areas where maybe you're touching on touchy subjects, normally get the most meaty things that you can bring back to a client that are going to make them really it's a forcing function to make sure that they are grappling with the hard questions, not just the ones that are easy. I would say anybody can go and ask buyers what they think, and a lot of them will give you the thumbs up and tell you it's awesome, and they don't want to tell you anything negative. It takes a different approach to be able to make sure that you're not just getting a bunch of yeses on something that at the end of the day no one would end up buying. They just don't want to hurt anyone's feelings.
Yeah, that how you facilitate that conversation is so important, that you really get to the core and get outside of what people are saying in the boardroom. Hey, here are our assumptions, but this is what it would look like. So in your space, there's a lot of new technology coming out. So, what's your opinion on, of course, everybody's talking about artificial intelligence and machine learning and some of these things. Like, what do you see, and how do you see that impacting kind of the work you do or marketing in general?
Yeah, I mean, we've had a pretty front row seat for many years to machine learning and large language models and all these things long before it became hugely popular in the last couple of years. We work with companies that sell this stuff to hospital systems, to large companies, to you name it. And it's something that I think is not just interesting, but is going to be hugely valuable to us in the work that we do, but maybe not in the way that you might imagine. We tend to use it more for helping us we tell it the data to think about and then have it pull out things for us, versus saying, ask me what I should ask a prospect or a buyer or someone in a loss interview, for instance. I think that I'm not concerned at this point for the type of work that we do, because I do believe that it's only going to make first party data and insights even more important.
Yeah. Because
everyone has very broad and pretty equal access to these major large language models, right? If someone asks ChatGPT what the persona is or buyer profile is for a certain type of buyer, it's going to give them a list, and it's going to pull it from all over the internet. Now, there are concerns, I think, that eventually large language models will start to cite themselves, and it's copy of a copy. It's going to get a little weird when it starts figuring out like it wrote something new and now it's using that as part of its data set.
Yeah.
But the bigger thing to me, and the place that we are placing our bets, is that anytime that something kind of levels the playing field for everyone, you have to do something else to gain the advantage, right?
Yep.
And the something else that most people are not doing today is actually having human-to-human conversations to gather insights that nobody else has, because it's data that doesn't exist anywhere.
Right.
Yep. Right. And I think that it's going to be important that use the tools that are available in AI to help you do your work better, but don't outsource the brain power to it, because that to me is the difference maker. It's what is the insight that you're going to have that others don't have access to, even if they know how to formulate a good question in ChatGPT, that's going to give you the edge, right? It's always the best players tend to be the ones that can create some level of information asymmetry. They know something that other people don't know, and they protect it, right? Yeah. So how do you know something someone doesn't know if everyone can just type in, create me a competitive battle card for our competitor XYZ, and it spits out one and everybody sees the same information? That doesn't give you any asymmetry. Everyone's kind of on the equal footing until somebody figures out, like, I need to gain ground in another way. And I think that primary intelligence and primary research is one way to do it.
Yeah. And I talk about AI being, it's a curator of things. Like, it curates from the world and from things that you'd be looking at, but you still have to look at it. You have to look at what it is, put some intelligence into it, those types of things. Well, thanks so much for joining me today. That's a very interesting conversation. I'm a big believer in what you do. So it's so important to get those, get outside of your own thinking as it relates to what your customer wants or doesn't, and make sure you're doing all the right things. So thanks for joining us on the call. And so when someone wants to get information on you, what's the best place for them to track you down?
Yeah, you can find us at aggregateinsights.com. You can go to aggregateinsights.com/podcast if you'd like to come in through the podcast route. We are very much of the opinion that the type of work that we do, what we do and how we do it is not a secret. So we're very open and happy to share exactly how we do it. It takes judgment and it takes a lot of work to do it. So we get our fair share of folks that say, let's have you come help us. But there, on that, on /podcast, we do offer a win-loss guide that walks you through every step of the way how we go about doing win-loss projects for our own clients. So you can check that out. Obviously, reach out to us if interested, but if you just want to get a head start, and even if you want to do it yourselves, it will give you a step-by-step guide on one of the ways to start doing primary research in a way that I think is accessible to most, right? Having to actually build out the infrastructure to go out and talk to respondents who have never interacted with you, I think is a V2 sort of thing. V1 is like, just talk to the people who have evaluated you very recently and either chose not to use you or chose to use you. They tend to be a great set of folks to get this information from. So, that guide's on there, but also reach out if we can be of any help.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. So you've been listening to The Claw. I'm Eric Holtzclaw, Chief Strategist at Liger. The Claw is the marketing podcast for C-suite executives. We've been talking today with Brady Jensen. He is the CEO of Aggregate Insights. We'll put all of his information and how you can get in touch with him in the show notes. Thank you so much.